All right. So, hi guys. Here we are meeting the second time for our PM Success Batch of March 2026. Yesterday we met and we were doing chapter number 15. Now, I have this habit, guys, that whenever we are starting off with new topics for the day, I always revise with you people what we have done previously. So, this way it helps you jog your memory a little bit as to what all we've covered in the previous class, and then we are able to build better for the further class that we are going to have from today. So guys, quickly let me know what all did you people learn yesterday? What all concepts did we cover yesterday? Okay, Sahana says that we went through the ratios. What are the different types of ratios that we have spoken about in this chapter? And other things, what else did we do yesterday? This will also help me find out whether you people have actually revised the things that we did yesterday. Performance hierarchy, very good. We learned the interpretation of the ratios. We learned about different kinds of ratios, liquidity, profitability, activity, gearing ratios. And then we moved towards the interpretation of the ratios. And we also solved an activity together where I showed to you people how we can actually frame our own answers, where for whole 20 marks, we are required to draft our own answers with respect to the analysis of the performance. Right, yes, we did performance hierarchy where we had the mission of the company. That's basically the reason why the company exists. Then we spoke about the corporate objectives. Then we spoke about the unit objectives. So these were a few concepts that we had learned in the yesterday's session. So as I scroll through, you people would be able to recollect that these are the things that we had covered in the session when we met yesterday. Now proceeding further, guys, if you all remember, activity 2 is what we solved together. It was where we were discussing about the performance of the financial performance of a company which was given to us in this particular activity. Now we are going to be proceeding further with the concepts that we have as a part of this chapter. So now we are talking about ratios. I told you people that a fancy name for ratios is financial performance indicators. Financial performance indicators are also called as ratios. So now, are financial performance indicators the best way to judge the performance? Do you people think so? If I'm only using the ratios, will it be the best way to judge the performance? Not necessarily. So here in today's session, we are going to get started that FPIs, the financial performance indicators, these are good, but they are not the best. They have their pros, they have their cons. So we will learn what are the weaknesses or what are the reasons which make the financial performance indicators not the best thing, and then how we can overcome those weaknesses with the help of something else which will help us not to be able to judge the performance of a company in an even better manner. So firstly, understanding is important that why exactly are financial performance indicators not the best. So we have some weaknesses in financial performance indicators because of which they are not the best. The very first weakness that you people can see over here on your screen is that they will have an excessive focus over the short-term cost reduction. Now, what do we mean? That if, let's suppose, I am working through my ratios, now every year I calculate my balance sheet, I prepare my P&L account and my balance sheet. Now, I know that if I want the profits to look good in front of the investors, now guys, profits we all know is a function. How do you come to profits? Profits will always be equal to your sales minus all of your costs, right? This is how you work around the profit for any company. So if I want the profit figure to increase, I can do two things. Either I can increase my sales or I can reduce my costs. Now, if let's suppose to my investors, I want to portray a very good image, what would I try to do with the costs, guys? If I want to show the profits to be a higher number, what will I show the costs to be? Will I understate the cost or will I try to overstate the costs? I will try to reduce the costs. Now, if guys, I'm trying to reduce the cost, maybe let's suppose I own a restaurant, and in this restaurant, I'm serving food to my customers. So now, if I want to reduce the cost, maybe what I can do is I can go for ordering the cheaper raw material, which may be bad in terms of quality. Now, if I do that, definitely the cheaper raw material is going to be lesser expensive, because of which my costs will be lesser. So if my costs are lesser, my profits are higher, which will make my investors happy. But do you people think that using cheaper raw material will help me as a business in the long run? What will happen if I keep using the cheaper raw material? Quality will be compromised. Customers are not going to come back to me in the future. Absolutely right. So this is why if my performance is only evaluated with the help of ratios, I will focus too much on the short-term cost reduction that I will compromise the long-term aspect of the business. I will think that this year I have to show this much of profit no matter what happens. So to do that, I may take some steps which will definitely help me right now to show good amounts of profits, but it may not be in the best interest of the long-term aspect of the business. So this is the first weakness that we have with respect of financial performance indicators. Second weakness that you people see over here is that we are ignoring quality, we are ignoring delivery, we are ignoring customer satisfaction, and we are ignoring the after sales service. So when you talk about financial performance indicators, all the ratios, where are you taking your numbers from, guys? All the ratios, where do you get the numbers from? Financial statements, books of accounts. So are you looking at how happy the customers are, how happy the employees are working at your company, or how satisfied the customers are with the after sales services that you're providing to them? Do you see that in the financial ratios anywhere? No. But is that important for the success of the company in the long term? Yes, it is. So it should also be considered. But we are ignoring these things in financial performance indicators. That is why it is a limitation. And the third reason that you people can see over here is that all of the ratios that you people calculate, it's not necessary that the ratio will always give you the right picture. Why? Because ratios come from the numbers in the books of accounts, in the financial statements, which can always be window dressed, which can be manipulated, which can be affected using different accounting policies. So just yesterday, we were all talking about how the numbers can be manipulated. So I told you, when there are different accounting policies, we had discussed the example of depreciation. So with depreciation, we have the SLM method, we have the written down value method. So both methods give you different amount as depreciation. That means your profits can be affected with respect to the policy that you adopt. So because something which can be manipulated, guys, do you think that if something can be manipulated, you should be trusting that information? Should you do that? No. So these are the weaknesses in front of you, that why financial performance indicators are always not the best way to measure the performance of any company. So with non-financial performance indicators, we were talking about how there is a short-term focus that we have. So this short-term focus, the problem that if, let's suppose, I tell the managers at my company that I will only look at your ratios and I will decide whether you've done a good job or not. So then these managers, they are going to suffer from a problem. What problem will this be? This problem will be called as short-termism, or this can also be called as myopia. What is myopia? If you people have studied your, elementary education, where they used to teach you about the different diseases. So with respect to our eyes, this is one disease. When you only see the things which are near you, that's what is called as myopia. And the problem that you develop when you can only, when you are finding it difficult to see the far off things, that is when you call it, when you find it easy to see see the nearby things, but you're not able to see the far off things. That is what you call as myopia. And when you have far-sightedness, that means you can see for far, but you cannot see near you. That is called as hypermetropia. So myopia basically is that condition where I can only see in nearby, in my vicinity, but I cannot see what is there in the longer vision. So that is what is the problem of short-termism, or what you also call as myopia. So this is when the managers are taking a short-term view in order to set the financial targets, and they are effectively ignoring the longer term. So again, the example remains the same. Let's suppose I'm working at a restaurant. So if just to minimize my costs right now for this month, for this quarter, this year, I'm using cheaper raw material, this will definitely help me meet my targets for this year. But this way I am ignoring the long term, because the customers may not want to come back to me because of the poor quality of the food. So this is the problem that we say as short-termism or myopia. So if in any organization you are only using the FPIs, you're only using ratios to measure the performance, then the managers are going to face this particular problem. Any queries still here, guys? Are you all with me so far? Okay, so now proceeding further towards what are the reasons why managers will be facing this problem of short-termism, or why they will be having this issue of myopia. Firstly, usually what happens is the bonuses are tied to these ratios. So what will you tell your manager? That if the sales go up by, let's suppose, 15%, we will give you a 5% bonus. So now your entire focus goes on to bringing as many customers as possible. Sometimes the bonus may be in terms of profit. So if the profit goes up by 15%, then you get a 5% bonus. Whatever your salary is, you're going to get 5% more of your original salary. So the reason why managers will be too much focused on the short term is because the bonus that they will get also depends upon this short term ratio. So this is one reason why they will be moving forward with short termism, why they will fail to see the future, because their eyes are tied to the price, that is the bonus that they will be getting if they achieve this particular short term target. Another reason is they may be expecting to be promoted or higher turnover. So what does that mean? Again, that if, let's suppose, my the company where I'm working, this company has told me that if this year the profits go up by 20%, we will give you a promotion. Now promotion is something which everyone wants. So definitely, even if I think that my profits will not go up to 20%, I will do everything in my capacity. I will do as many manipulations as possible just so that I'm able to get that promotion for myself. So this is another reason why I will be going for short-termism as a manager. And one more reason that you people see over here is that sometimes even the shareholders take a short-term view. Otherwise, if you see, shareholders are permanent owners of the company. So they should be concerned with the long term, how the company is going to do in the longer, bigger picture. But sometimes what happens is shareholders are also getting concerned about the recent performance of the company. So let's suppose the company has not been doing very well for 1 year, 1.5 years. Now the shareholders have started to get worried. So now if this year also the profits do not show a good increase, then maybe my shareholders are going to get disappointed. Now, if I know that you people tell me that if the shareholders get disappointed, is that something that any of the company is going to want? Will any company want to disappoint their shareholders? No. Why do they not want to do that? Why do I not want to disappoint my shareholders? What will happen if the shareholders are disappointed? They will sell the shares and they will exit from the company. What happens if a lot of shareholders go to the market at the same time and sell the shares of the company on the market? Whenever you sell something too much, the prices drop. That's absolutely right, Thando. So what will happen over here is that if I upset my shareholders, they're going to want to exit from my company. They're going to want to sell their investments. If that happens, that will not be good for me as a company, because my share prices will start to tumble. The share prices will start to fall down, yes, the share price will go down and so will be the value of the company. So we do not want to do that. So if let's suppose I'm afraid that my shareholders will get disappointed, that gives me one more reason to be short term in nature, to be having a short term vision and not thinking about the long term, keeping the long term on the side, because I know that if the shareholders get upset, then it is going to be an even bigger problem. So these are a few reasons that are given to us why managers will be facing this problem of myopia or short-termism. Further, how does it harm your business in the long term? Maybe because of focusing too much on the short term, I'm failing to invest in worthwhile projects. So this will mainly with the ROCE ratio, where in the denominator we have the capital employed. So I take my PBIT and in my denominator I have my capital employed. So there was one project which was very good and ideally I should have invested in the project, but I was worried that if I invest in the project right now, my capital employed will increase. So if my denominator increases, my overall final answer of ROCE will fall, which will upset my shareholders. So I will fail to invest in a project which is in fact very good for the long-term well-being of the company. How else does it harm you? I may fail to invest in the value building activities. What could be value building activities? Maybe there is a training that I should be giving to my staff. If I give them that training, in the long term, they are going to be very efficient if they get this particular training. But again, if I do go ahead with this training, this will be an expense which I will have to incur in this particular year. If I incur expenses, my profits go down and then my investors are going to be sad about it. So maybe this is something which I should be doing. It will be very good for the company's long-term growth, but just because I want to meet the short-term targets, I may fail to invest in those activities which actually build value for the company. Another way how it can harm you is cutting down on activities that lead to better quality of the product. So maybe whatever product that we manufacture at our company, there's some new technology which has come into the market, and if we want to use this technology, we will have to go buy the licenses and everything. So maybe I again do not want to incur that cost, and this will lead me to preventing that increase in the quality of the product, which I should have done ideally, because if I improve the quality of the product, it means good for the long-term well-being of the company. But just because I am focusing too much on these ratios, I may restrict myself from doing that. Another thing is reducing the headcount. Guys, do you know what does headcount mean? What does headcount mean? Yeah, it's the number of employees, the people, the staff. Very good. So sometimes I may even think that let's reduce the number of staff that we have. So many staff is there. They're not even all working at the all of the times. So let me just reduce the number of employees. But maybe right now, if I reduce the number of employees, I may end up saving money, but maybe later I need them, but I won't be having them. So the business may suffer from that in the future, in the long term. Further, recruitment freezes and cutbacks can be there in the training. Recruitment freeze means I have stopped the recruitment process. Every year the company recruits 1,000 more employees, but this year I wanted to save on costs. That's why I have frozen the recruitment, that this year we will not take any more new employees. We will do it the next year, and that also we will see. So this is recruitment freeze. And further, there can be cutbacks in the training. So I was giving you people the example that if let's suppose there's a training which if my employees get, they will be very efficient in the long term, but I decide to cut it back. Maybe a good trainer would have costed me $50,000, but I just got an average trainer for $10,000. So definitely if I'm reducing the expenses over there, in the long term, I will not be getting the same amount of benefit which I was anticipating. Further, another way that it can harm you is salary freezes leading to increased staff turnover. So sometimes what you can tell your staff, if let's suppose I want to make the ratios look better, I may say that, hey, listen, to my employees, I will tell them that I know that this is the salary that we have to pay you, and we every year we give you a bonus, and every year we give you an appraisal. You have a 20% increase every year, but this year we are not going to increase your salary. So here we are freezing your salary this year. So if I do that, definitely I will be able to save money. It will look good on paper, but the turnover of the staff will increase. Turnover means more and more people will want to leave from the company and join someplace else. So if my employees leave in big quantities, guys, is it good for the company? If lots and lots of employees keep on quitting the company, is it good? No. Why is it not good? Why is it not good if lots and lots of employees keep leaving the company? Think what will happen if lots and lots of employees start quitting the company every day? The operations are going to be affected. Very good. So basically, whenever somebody quits, you have to bring someone else to do that job. And the person who is quitting, they already knew the job, but a new person does not know how to do the work. So you have to spend again money first on recruiting new people, and then you have to train those new people. So multiple costs the business has to bear if the existing staff exits from the company. So this is the concept of short-termism or myopia, and what are the reasons why managers have this, and what are the ways in which it harms the businesses in the long term. So here we are discussing the weaknesses. Now, if you people are clear with me till here, then we will go towards how we can overcome these problems, and what, if not ratios, then what else can we use to find out whether the company is performing nice or not. Any queries still here, guys? Okay, great. So now we proceed further to how we can solve this particular problem. So to solve this problem of short-termism or myopia, we have something called as NFPIs. So they stand for non-financial performance indicators. So earlier, as financial performance indicators were ratios which were only talking about the balance sheet figures, which were talking about the books of accounts figures, here the NFPIs are going to talk about everything apart from that, just to add more perspective about the quality, more perspective about how happy the staff are, how happy the customers are. So we are going to use NFPIs so that we are able to solve or mitigate the problem of short-termism. So here we are going to include lots and lots of measures with which we can measure the quality that the business is providing. We will also measure the staff satisfaction, because keeping the staff satisfied is also very important. As you people were only telling me that if the staff leave the company, the operations will get affected. So I also have to keep my staff satisfied. You people will see that time and again, the companies also keep collecting the staff surveys. So I remember that when I used to be working at Deloitte, every year there were staff surveys that were conducted. In that survey, questions were sent to us where we had to tell how happy we were working at that particular organization. So the companies also keep doing this to test whether the staff is satisfied or not. And further, with the use of NFPIs, we want to have a more balanced view. Why we say it's balanced? Because earlier, when we were only looking at ratios, when we were only looking at numerical balance sheet items, we were giving too much of importance to the numbers. But here, we are going to focus upon the other things also. We are going to go beyond numbers. We are going to look at quality. We are going to look at how happy the staff are, how happy the customers are. So we are going to get a more balanced view about the company. We'll get to see the perspectives of different people. We'll talk about the money also, and we will talk about everything apart from money also. So this way we can solve the problem of short-termism. Now, we know that whenever a business is operating, there are a few key areas that if, let's suppose, I want to continue as a good business, I want to succeed in my business, a few areas are something which is really important. If I do not do that thing nicely, then I would fail. So I'll give you people an example. Consider a restaurant. So if you guys have a restaurant and the food is not good, can that restaurant thrive? Can the restaurant succeed? If I have very good interiors, everything, the ambience is very nice, but the food tastes pathetic, I still cannot succeed, right? If let's suppose you have a hotel business and the guests are not liking your hotel rooms, so do you think that hotel will be able to succeed in the future? No. So critical success factors is basically the areas where the organization absolutely non-negotiably has to perform good if they want to succeed. So the best way to understand what a critical success factor is the taste of food at any restaurant. So you know that if the food is not good, the restaurant cannot continue. The restaurant cannot succeed. So this is the concept of critical success factors. Now, how do you measure critical success factor? Now, let's suppose if we continue with our restaurant example, I know that if I have a restaurant business, my critical success factor is going to be good quality and good taste of food. Good quality, or you can say taste of food. Now, this is something, guys, can you measure whether the food is of good quality and taste or not? Is it going to be the same for everybody? What Sahana thinks about my food and what Kia thinks about my food, is it going to be the same? Not necessarily, right? So we need something, yes, definitely, Thando, this is subjective. So we need something which should be able to help me measure whether my critical success factor is achieved or not. So how will I find out whether at my restaurant I have been able to get good quality and taste of food or not? So for that, we have come up with another thing. To measure this, we have come up with KPIs, or what in full you also call as key performance indicators. So we call them as key performance indicators. So what are key performance indicators? They help you measure whether you have been able to meet with your ultimate objective of critical success factors or not. So what are good KPIs? What would be the examples of good KPIs? KPIs should be specific. That means they should not be generic. Just not saying that the food should be tasty. I should be setting some specific standard about it. It should be measurable. So I say that maybe if I want to measure whether I have been able to meet my CSF or not, I will say that my average rating at the restaurant, if I ask my customers to give my food a rating out of 5. So 1 being the worst and 5 being the best. So I'm targeting that there should be a rating of 4.5 on an average that is given to me by my customers. And third is that it should also be relevant. What do I mean by relevant? That this should be something which is related to what we want to do. So if I'm talking about the good quality taste and food, KPI should not be about the ambience. So each and everything that I am putting over here, it should be related directly to my critical success factor. So these are the 3 main characteristics about your KPIs. If you want it to be a good KPI, it should be specific, it should be measurable, and it should be relevant. We also have an example over the ACCA Study Hub, which we will discuss with respect to understanding the KPIs. So if you people see over here, this is an example given about Vodafone Group PLC. So you can see Vodafone is a British multinational telecom provider. We even have Vodafone over here in India. They have come up into a joint venture. Who has Vodafone merged itself with? Are you people aware? Idea. Very good, Kia. So Vodafone and Idea, they came together and now they go by the name of VI, that is V. So they are a telecom operator. They provide you with the calling, SMS and the SIM card services. So how do they measure their performance? They measure it firstly with the help of mobile data growth and the network quality. So what is the speed? This is Mbps, megabytes per second. So how fast is the network working? Because your objective as a company is to keep your customers satisfied. And right now we all know that everybody wants to have a high speed internet. So one way how they measure their success is what is the network quality? What is the growth in the mobile data? What about the broadband and the consumer customers? So converged consumer customers. So basically the number of customers, whether that is growing or not. Data and 4G users in terms of millions. So if your service is good, this number should ideally keep on increasing year on year. Mobile contract churn. So this may be something which they again, some technical term which they use. Yes, number of subscribers left. Internet of Things, basically the SIM growth, how many more number of people are taking their SIMs. And M-Pesa, which is an African payments platform for the customers. So how many people are making their transactions via Vodafone? That is also something which will tell them to help them to find out how their performance has been. So these are a few examples of what we can use as the KPIs or the key performance indicators. Now guys, some of you may be coming up with this question in your mind that why exactly do we need to have these non-financial performance indicators? Why do we need them? Why can't we just go ahead with ratios only? So some of the advantages are given to us by these non-financial performance indicators, because of which it becomes good to use the NFPIs also. So what are the advantages that come with NFPIs? Firstly, they are measures which are consistent with your strategy. So we were discussing this thing yesterday also, that if let's suppose you want to clear the PM paper, that is what is your objective is, that is what is your goal is. And how you decide to clear the PM paper, what plan of action that you create for it is what you call as strategy. So with respect to our strategy, we are able to come up with measures so that we can find out, with the help of these non-financial performance indicators, we can find out whether we are on the right track of following our strategy or not. Second advantage that you get over here is that they are reliable and they are less easily manipulated. So in ratios, we were talking about a limitation that it is very easy to manipulate the numbers just by using different accounting policies or by doing window dressing. It is possible to manipulate the books of accounts. But when it comes to these numbers, guys, number of customers that you have, how many customers switched from another network to the Vodafone network, do you think these numbers can also be manipulated? Regarding the customer service, regarding the staff satisfaction, do you think it will be so easy to manipulate these numbers just like the books of accounts? No. So if something is difficult to manipulate, then it also makes it a little bit more reliable. So this is another advantage that we get with NFPIs. Then number 3 is that they are easy to compute and report quickly. These are non-finance related. So anyone probably who is not like us, who does not come from an accounting and finance background, they will also be able to understand the NFPIs. Why? Because we're talking about literally something which happens on a day-to-day basis. How happy your customers are, how happy your employees are, how good the quality of your products or services are. So this is something which even the common people can easily understand. But if you throw terms at them like gearing and profitability and interest cover, maybe it will be difficult for them to understand the things. But with NFPIs, it may be very easy for them to understand. And another advantage with NFPIs is that they are flexible and they are adaptable to each industry. Why do we say flexible? We can keep changing them as per the needs of the business. So if let's suppose Vodafone has now ventured into the 5G technology, so now the NFPIs can be modified to look at the 5G performance of the company, and they can be adapted to each and every industry. So here we are talking about an example of the telecom industry. Even you can use them in maybe a retail business, you can use them in a wholesale business. So each and everything is possible. These NFPIs can be used in any industry that you want to. So they are versatile. So these are the advantages that we get whenever we are using the non-financial performance indicators. Any queries still here, guys? Are you all with me? All with me till here? Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's proceed further towards another activity that we have over the ACCA Study Hub. This is going to be activity number 3. Yeah. So I will ask you people to think about your answers over here. Let's go through the requirement first. We have to suggest some possible non-financial performance measures which might be used in a manufacturing organization to measure the following attributes. So you are using them in any of the manufacturing companies. So manufacturing company is anyone who is into the manufacturing of items. Like we don't just trade, we don't buy it from someone and we sell the thing. We are making the thing on our own. So we manufacture the things and we have to suggest the non-financial performance indicators. So it has to be something which is not money related. If you want to measure the product quality, guys, what are the things that you can measure? What are the things which you can use as the non-financial performance? Okay, good. I see answers coming in. Number or the percentage of returned goods. All right. What else can you people think of? When I'm talking about the quality of the product. Customer satisfaction, maybe we can think about in part C. That's another part altogether, Ruth. If I want to measure the quality of my goods, how can I do that? Number of complaints also we can say could go under the customer satisfaction. When you're thinking about quality, guys, think about are you people aware that whenever you're manufacturing electrical equipment, you're supposed to meet a safety standard? Are you people aware of that? In India, we call it the ISO mark, ISO, International Safety Organization. You have to meet those rules and regulations. Are you people aware of that? Were you people aware of it earlier? Yes, very good, Satya. Product returned by the quality control team during the inspection. So, what happens in big organizations is before your product finally goes out to the public, because especially if you're talking about something like electricity goods, maybe I'm manufacturing electric heaters. So, if there are electric heaters, there are good chances that if my plug that I'm creating, if it does not meet the safety standards, whenever my customer tries to plug that in, maybe that bursts out. So it can lead to my product being called as a bad quality product. So in each and every business, what do we have to do? We have to comply with the safety standards. And to do that, we also have a checking team. So before we send the goods out to the customers, we check those products on our own. So on checking also, sometimes we can find the faulty goods in the factory itself. So how many number of goods had to come back to us because they did not meet the quality check, or how many goods are compliant with the safety standards? This is how we can measure the quality of our product. What else can we use? How many defects were there? How many claims came for the warranty? How many were the things which were passed in the first time when the quality check was done? So this is how we can measure about the quality of our product. So let's see what answers they have given to us here. So product quality is percentage of items which are rejected by the quality of control and percentage of items which are returned by the customer. So if the product quality is good, the number of items rejected will also be less and the number of items returned by the customers will also be less. Further, let's talk about part B now, product delivery. So here we are only focusing upon the delivery process to the customers. Think if you people are ordering something from Amazon, when will you say that the delivery was something that you were satisfied with? How can you measure whether it was a good delivery or not? Very good. On time, whether it is on time. What else? So we can say percentage of on time deliveries. What else? Percentage of late deliveries also we can say that how many percentage of orders were delivered late to the customers. What else, guys? Right product was delivered, full order was received or not, very good. Damaged delivery, very good. So you are delivering the right thing at the right time, very good. So these are a few things that you can use. Let's see what they have put over here. Percentage of customer orders delivered on time and the waiting time from order to delivery. So percentage of orders delivered in time, the more the number, the better this is. And the waiting time between order and delivery. So let's suppose if you people are placing the order today, how much time does Amazon take to deliver it to you? So the lesser it is, the better it will be, or the more the better. Waiting time. Lesser is better, more is better. Lesser is always preferred by the customers. Absolutely. Talk about the third one, customer satisfaction. How will you measure customer satisfaction? Now the points that you people were throwing in earlier will come in. Somebody said repeat customers. So if the customers are satisfied, they are coming back. That means they were actually finding our product good. They were satisfied with our product. What else? How else can you find out whether the customers are satisfied with your products or not? Okay, compliments, or you could say that the feedback that they have filled for us, the average score that we are receiving on the feedback, very good. The number of customer complaints that we are getting, very nice. What else? What is the retention rate with respect to your customers? Yes, repeat orders we've discussed, and the retention ratio also. How many customers, if let's suppose I have 100 customers in the beginning of the month, let's suppose I sell toothpaste which gets over every month. So how many customers are retained with me? How many new customers join in? That is also something which we can use to measure the customer satisfaction. So percentage of customers returning, percentage of customers who complained or who are unsatisfied. So these are the things which we can use to measure the customer satisfaction. Further, if you talk about the last part, after sales service. So what things could you put over here in the after sales services? Do people first understand exactly what are after sales services? After sales services are basically when the customer has already purchased something from you. Yeah, it's exactly about the warranty period. So the customer has purchased, let's suppose you bought a washing machine from maybe Philips, and it has a period of warranty for 5 years. Now 2 years are over, 3 years are still left, and you're facing an issue with your washing machine. So how will you measure whether the after sales service is good or not? Tell me a few ways. When will you be happy, or when will you not be happy? TAT, turnaround time for your service, very good. So how long did you have to wait until somebody came to fix your problem? Okay. Percentage, can we say also the percentage of customers who were satisfied with the after sales service? So after you are done with the repairing work, were they happy? Did they give you a clean check? But did they tell you that yes, the machine got repaired after the service was completed? And how many repeat service calls did you get for the same issue? So maybe I lodged a complaint, somebody came to fix my machine. At that time it was working fine, but 2 days later it again broke down. So for the same issue, I will be calling the company again. So this way I will be able to measure the after sales service also, the waiting time, how long did I have to wait, percentage of customers who complain or who remain unsatisfied. And we can also take customer surveys. In that survey, we can ask them that whether they were satisfied once the technician visited and the problem was fixed. Was the customer satisfied with that resolution or not? Satya says percentage of timely service, repeat customer waiting time. Yes, absolutely. These are things that we can use to find out whether the performance has been good with respect to all of these attributes that we were discussing. So far, so good, guys. All good till here? Great, great. So now we proceed further to the next topic. Okay, so now you people would see again the notes on your screen. The next topic that we have is how we can actually measure whether the quality has been good or not. So a few things which can indicate quality to you. So in the business, what we can do is there are two things that we can do with respect to quality. First is we have quality control, and second we can do quality assurance. Now a lot of students get confused that both of the things mean the same, but they don't mean the same. I'll tell you what's the difference between quality control and quality assurance. So quality control is basically you keep quality inspectors. So what do they do is once the production of the goods that you are manufacturing, the production gets completed, then once all the finished goods are ready, they inspect with respect to the quality of the product. So they check each and every product or maybe some products on a sample basis whether the quality is what we were thinking it to have or not. So the products which do not meet the quality, we reject them and then we make other goods in place of that. And one more thing that we can do to ensure quality in our company is quality assurance. What is quality assurance? It means that you put in place procedures, you put processes in your company to ensure that there is good quality. So how can you do that? Maybe you can introduce some new technology. Maybe you can have some meetings in the company where you can tell the staff that we have to maintain this quality. You have to ensure that the work gets done in this particular manner. And another thing that you can do is using better quality of the materials. So the materials that you're using in your manufacturing, if they are better quality, then your product also will overall be of a better quality. So these are two things. Now, what is the main difference? Quality control happens when the production is complete. After that, you're checking the quality with the help of quality inspectors. And guys, when does quality assurance happens? Before the production or after the production? If you're using better material, you will decide that before or after producing? Before producing, right? So this is the main line of difference, guys, that quality control happens after the production is done. So what and assurance is something that you do before you actually start the production. So this is the main difference between quality control as well as quality assurance. These are the indicators for quality. So how can I ensure that the quality will be good in my company? That is what these are two things which are a part of the same. We also have one more activity over the ACCA Study Hub, which we will head to. Right, so here is activity 4 in front of you. Again, this is a full requirement where we have to be descriptive of our answer. We have to assess the non-financial performance of BG for the last 2 years based on the information that has been provided to us. Before we start off with this activity, just give me a quick confirmation if you're all good with quality control and assurance. You've got the key difference between both the concepts. Should we get onto this particular case study? Okay, so I'll read the question for you. You know that what you have to do in your mind, just keep it at the back of your mind when we are reading this case study, that we have to assess the non-financial performance of the company. Non-financial means we don't have to just blindly look at the numbers. We have to think about the quality. We have to think about customer satisfaction. We have to think about employee satisfaction. So we are given Ben's Grub Company, BG, operates a food takeaway and delivery service based in Homeland. Customers buy ready meals by walking into one of BG's takeaway shops or placing an order for home delivery by telephone or internet. Home deliveries are delivered by motorcycle. BG's mission is to provide excellent quality food. So we can highlight their mission, provide excellent quality food by buying only the freshest products and excellent service by recruiting and retaining the best staff. So this is what we want to do. We want to provide the best high quality food, and for that we want to use best of the fresh of of the products, and we want to have an excellent service by having a staff which we recruit and we also retain. Its meals are of good quality and aimed at busy middle class professionals with high disposable income levels. A performance measurement report focusing on non-financial measures has been used for several years. The report for the last 2 years contains the following information with industry average figures where available. So we are given with year 1, year 2 information, and for some of the items we are given the industry average also. What do we mean by industry average, guys? Do you people know that? What is meant by industry average? Any idea what is industry average? You can tell me if you don't. I'll let you know what it is. Yes, it is a benchmark. It is something which is acceptable in that industry. It is something which your competitors are having. Absolutely right, all of you. So these, for some numbers, we are also given with the industry averages. So let's see what all information is given to us. Percentage of orders delivered in 30 minutes. So maybe we don't have a claim like, some companies like Domino's has a claim that if your order is not delivered under 30 minutes, it will be for free. But this is just one way we are measuring that how many orders are delivered within 30 minutes. So this will be the more the number of orders we are delivering in the lesser time, the better it will be. So in year 1, it used to be 86% of the orders which were delivered in 30 minutes. In year 2, it is 81% and the industry average is 80%. So guys, what do you think about this particular measure? What does it tell you about the company, BG? It has been above the industry average. But if you talk about within BG itself, from year 1 to year 2, has it been a good thing or do you see something bad happening here? From 86, this number is falling to 81. So this is something which is showing you that the performance is deteriorating. Earlier, no, Ruth, it is not progress. In year 1, you were delivering out of 100 orders, 86 orders were delivered in 30 minutes. But now out of 100 orders, only 81 orders are delivered in 30 minutes. Although in both of the years, you are doing better than the average industry, than your competitors. But still, if you talk about your own self, you have this particular number has fallen down, which means you're now taking longer to do the home deliveries. Moving further to the next thing that we see, quality of meals rating by independent reviewer out of 10. So quality of meals, this is something which is rated by an independent reviewer. Independent would be somebody who does not work at BG, who has no connection to BG. They come and they try how our food tastes. So out of 10, in year 1, they have given a rating of 8 and year 2, they have given a rating of 7. The average in the industry is 6. So again, what we are seeing is a similar trend. We are in both of the years better than the average. But if you talk about within BG itself, has it been a good thing or has it been something bad for BG? The quality rating falling from 8 to 7. That's a bad thing. Further, let's see about the other aspects. Average customer rating out of 5. So in industry, on an average, we get a 3 rating. In year 1, we used to have a rating of 4.3, but in year 2, it has also fallen to 3.7. So far, we have discussed 3 of the performance measures, and all 3 of them, we are seeing this particular pattern that everywhere we are higher than the industry standards. But if we are comparing from our own performance compared to the last year, we are not going towards the right direction. Further, if you talk about the number of meals sold, earlier we were selling 62,000 number of meals. Now it has gone up to 70,000. So that's a good thing. Number of online sales, earlier it was 18,000. Now it has risen to 27,000. Number of website visits is also up. Number of new meals introduced is also, earlier we had 3 new meals. Now we we have 5 new meals. Number of complaints, if you see earlier, there used to be 500, but now the number of complaints has gone up to 760. This is again a bad thing, which tells you that the company is not going in the right direction. Further, if you see the staff turnover, they are giving you, how do you calculate the staff turnover? It's the number of leavers, the number of people who leave the company divided by the average head count. Average head count means the average number of people in the company. So in the industry, the staff turnover is as high as 60%. In year one, you had 35% leaving the company. In year two, you had 30% leaving the company. So guys, first of all, tell me about staff turnover. The lesser the better, or the more the better? Staff turnover, lesser the better or more the better? Lesser the better. So are we doing good in comparison to the industry? Are we on the right track? Yes, we are. And what about our own performance compared to the last year? Last year, 35 people were leaving. Now 30 people are leaving. So within our own self also, we are seeing an improvement. Now, if you see the number of employees, in year one, we had 20 employees, and year two, we had 22 employees. Further, the last line is telling you people the industry average conversion rate. What is conversion rate? The number of online sales as a percentage of website visits is 4.5%. That means if 10 customers come to visit your website, not everyone will end up purchasing. Only 4.5, or roughly you can say 5 customers will end up purchasing out of 100 customers who come and visit your website. So this is what the last line is basically telling you. Now you guys, I give you people exactly, so this is a scenario which will perhaps be for, maybe let's put it for 10 marks. So 10 into 1.8 will give you 18 minutes, but I will not be giving you people 18 minutes over here. It's right now 7:56 in my clock. I'm giving you people exactly 5 minutes to just jot down a few rough points in your mind, or maybe on a pen and paper, maybe on your laptop Word document. Just write what are the points that you will put to add as the explanations. So for the explanations, you have to see the information that is given to you people over here. The home deliveries are made on motorcycle. The objective is to have good quality food, fresh products, recruiting and retaining the staff. So you basically have to have a look at all of these numbers, and you have to tell whether they have been on the right track or not. And if they are not on the right track, what is the reason? If they are on the right track, what is the reason, and how this could impact the future of the company. So it's 7:57 now. I give you people time until 8:02. Think a few points, and then we will draft this answer together. Okay, so did you people think of any points which we can possibly use over here? How should we start our answer? I have opened the same spreadsheet that I shared the link with you people yesterday. I can see some of you are already here as well over the spreadsheet. So I will just quickly rename this, that this is chapter number 15 that we are doing over here. And here we are going to solve activity 4 together. Activity 4. Okay, so any suggestions on how we should start this answer, guys? Okay, so Satya says we can talk about the quality of the food or product, the number of new meals, quality of service, all right, customer satisfaction. Anyone else? Any points that we can expand upon, guys? Okay, we can talk about the delivery as well. Okay, so what we should do is, first of all, we should just start off with a little bit of an introduction. That in the introduction, we will basically say that what is the aim of BG? What does BG want to do? They want to give a good service, good quality, and to whom? The busy middle class professionals. So these customers definitely, if they are paying a higher price, guys, if as a customer you are paying a higher price, what would you be expecting in return? Good quality, absolutely good quality with respect to food also and the service also. If the food is very tasty, but it comes to you after 1 hour, would you like that? Yes, exactly, Satya. You want a better quality with a timely delivery as well. Absolutely. So BG has to definitely keep the quality level high. Otherwise, there will be a risk of losing out on the customers. So how we can frame our answer, how we can start our answer is basically BG company aims to sell high quality food to its customers with excellent service. Its customers are middle class working professionals who, in exchange of paying high, or you can say premium prices, will expect to receive good quality food along with a timely delivery. Right? This is what the customers are going to expect. So if PG company wants to succeed, it will have to deliver the best quality with good service. So this is what we can start off our answer with. Further, what else can we talk about? Now we can go item by item. So then we can talk about the delivery performance. So one subheading that we can create. Now guys, after setting the introduction, please always remember that whenever you're framing your answers for these questions where it's a larger chunk where you're drafting your answers, please ensure that you do not end up writing long paragraphs. And for all points that you people make, you should be using subheadings as much as possible. So we can start off maybe talking a little bit about the delivery service. So with respect to the delivery service, we can see that the industry average is 80%. We are personally from 86% down to 81%. So what we can say is that the 30-minute delivery is down from 86% to 81%, even though it is still above the industry average. Management should be concerned. Why should they be concerned? Or now let's try to analyze some of the reasons why this could have happened. Guys, why do you think our timely deliveries fell down from 86 to 81%? Take a hint from the scenario. The food is delivered by the motorcycles, by the staff that we have. So if you people see, the number of employees has only gone up from 20 to 22. So only 2 new people have been hired. Whereas if you see the number of meals that were sold, they have gone up from 62,000 to 70,000. So you see that more number of orders are there, but at the same time, you can see the number of employees has not increased in line with that. So that would mean that the reason why this drop is visible may be because of the pressure that the staff is facing because of the higher sales volumes. So what we can say is that the reason is, you can say that the likely reason for this decline could be due to more pressure on the staff with the increased number of orders. The management should investigate the reason for the same and take corrective action since timely deliveries are important for the customers of BG company. Right? So this is something which we can say about the delivery service. Okay. Then what else we can talk about? Maybe can you people tell me the next subheading that I should put? What's the next thing that we can possibly discuss? Okay, let's talk about quality. So the food quality. So with respect to food quality, I think again we noticed a similar thing that with respect to both independent reviewer as well as customer rating, in all cases we are above the industry average, but our own comparison, it has declined. So what we can say is we can talk about how independent rating has fallen, how the customer rating has fallen. So we can put this over here that the independent rating fell from 8 to 7, while the customer rating fell from 4.3 to 3.7, 4.3 to 3.7. Further, what we can do is we can try to include as many reasons as possible. So this decline could be because of the new number of customers that are entering in. However, we can say that this is still above the industry average, so it's not very alarming, but we cannot afford that this thing continues in the future also. So we can say that this decline could have been there due to a large number of orders, and we can say that the ratings in both cases are still above the industry average. However, this decline in food quality should not continue. If this continues, it could be alarming for BG company. Right? So this is something which we have spoken about the food quality. What do you people think can be our next subheading over here? I'll take you people to this scenario. What's the next subheading that we can possibly talk about? Okay, so we can talk about the number of meals. Number of meals is basically our sales growth. So how much has our sales grown? We can talk a little bit about that as well. So with respect to our sales growth, we can have a look at our numbers and find out how much percentage growth is there. So 70 minus 62, 8,000 divided by 62,000 will give you the growth. 8 divided by 62. So that gives you a percentage growth of roughly, you can say 13%. So your meals sold are up by 13%. This means that you are still growing in terms of the number of sales. So the quality going down, has it affected the sales at your company? Even though the quality rating has fallen down, did your sales fall? No, your sales actually rose up. So this is a good thing that your growth is not yet affected by your quality problems, but this take it as a warning sign for your future performance that if you do not work upon your quality right now, maybe in the next year the sales growth can be lesser or it can even decline. So what we can say over here is that despite the fall in quality, the sales still went up by 13%. This means that growth is yet unaffected by the quality issues. This should be considered as a warning signal since continuous quality issues could hamper sales growth in the future years. So this is what we can say briefly about the sales growth. What else can we add about? Okay, we can talk about the online conversion of the customers. So I'll put this subheader over here, online conversion. So with respect to online conversion, we were told that 4.5% is the rate, the number of people who will visit our website, 4.5% of those are going to come up. So what we can say over here is that if we have a look at our conversion rate that has been given to us, the industry average is 4.5. And if we calculate it for this particular BG company, how can we calculate the conversion rate for our own figure? We are given with the formula. Take the number of online sales as a percentage of website visits. So your online sales are 18,000 with the number of visits being 400,000. So if I talk about the conversion rate in year one, the conversion rate will be 18 divided by 400. And if I talk about year two will be 27 divided by 450. 27 divided by 450. So you can see, have a look at it in percentage terms. When the industry average is 4.5, in year two, your conversion rate is actually above the industry average. What does it tell you people about your website? Is your website good? Have you done a good job in designing your website? Yes, because more number of customers on an average come to your website and actually buy something from you in comparison to your competitors. So we can say that the online conversion rates are same as industry average in year one. However, in year two, BG company saw higher than average conversion rates, meaning that the website is effective in attracting customers for BG company. What else can we talk about? Think about some more subheadings that we can include over here. Staff turnover and the new staff. Okay, so let's talk about that. Another subheading can be about the staff turnover and new staff. So with respect to staff, what can we possibly say? If we have a look at the average, we are better than the average already. We are showing a declining trend. Earlier it was 35, now it is 30, which is also a good thing. So what does it indicate? We were having our mission that we want to recruit and we want to retain our staff. Are we meeting that objective? If my staff turnover is falling down, what does that mean? Am I retaining my original staff? Yes. So my objective is also being met out over here. So what I will say over here is that my staff turnover at BG company is significantly lower compared to industry average year on year as well. The number is declining, which shows that staff is happy working at BG. This also means that BG company is successful in meeting their mission of recruiting and retaining their staff. Right. So this is something that we can say about that. And also we can talk about the new staff that even though sales went up, how much did your sales go up? Sales went up by 13%. The staff, or you can say, not a lot of new staff has been hired. This could mean overburden on the existing staff. You can say that management of BG company should consider if additional staff is needed to handle the work pressure. Right. So this is something that we can say about the staff. Any more subheadings that you people think we can possibly add over here? Yes, complaints, absolutely. So, with respect to the number of complaints, we can see they have gone up from 500 to 760. So, with respect to complaints, what all points can we possibly talk about over here? That how, firstly, see how much increase or decrease has there been. So 760 minus 500 will give you 260 divided by 500. 260 divided by 500. This tells you that the customer complaints have actually gone up by 52%. So this is a very big increase in the number of complaints. And this, why do you people think could customers be complaining? Can you think of any reasons which are given to you people in the case study here? Yes, one could be about the quality and another can be the delay. Very good, guys. So link everything. Try to see, try to find out the reasons. Each and everything is given to you. It's somewhere hidden in the scenario itself. So we can say that the number of complaints are up by 52%, which means that the customers are not satisfied. The reason behind the same is explained due to the decline in the food quality as well as increase, or you can say decrease in the number of deliveries, or you can say in the percentage of deliveries made within 30 minutes. This should be considered seriously as it can hamper the future prospects of BG company. Right. And then any other subheading that you people think we are missing out over here? Anything else that we can talk about, or should we now move towards the conclusion? Okay, we can add something about the new meals also. So with respect to new meals, earlier it was 3, now it is 5. So this is a good thing in a way, we can say. New meals in the last year, 3 new meals were launched, whereas this year 5 new meals are launched. Introducing new meals is good as long as the customers are enjoying the variety, as well as it remains feasible for BG company to offer these new introductions. Right, so this is something we can add with respect to this. Anything else that you people think is possible to write over here? Any other subheading that we can create, or should we now work towards a conclusion? Okay, so now we can frame an overall conclusion over here that we are seeing a good growth, especially the growth is coming from the online sources, and the decline we can see constantly in the service also, in the food quality also. They, BG company, actually need to do some actions immediately. If they do not do so, there is a risk. If you keep ignoring these problems, there is a risk that you will end up losing out on your customers. So how can we frame a conclusion over here is that BG company is on a strong growth path, especially with the online business booming. However, a constant decline in the service quality as well as in the service as well as food quality is a warning. Immediate action is needed. Otherwise, BG company faces a risk of losing out on its customers. So this is an overall conclusion that we can end our answer with. Okay, so here you people have your entire answer available in front of you. Right? Very easy to frame. Any difficulties? Anything that you would like to discuss over here? Any doubts? All clear? How do you find this? Is it easy, or writing so much? Is it difficult? Or do you think this is something that you can master with practice? What do you people think? Let me know. Do you find this easy? Do you find this difficult? Or with practice, it's doable? I can see Kia and Sahana telling me that this is easy with practice, and that's the best answer that you could give me. You will definitely need practice, but this is nothing which is difficult. PM students often get scared with this, but guys, trust me, if this is something which you get into the practice, if you type out questions on your own, this is something which will be like a piece of cake. It will be very easy for you people to solve. Just keep practicing things on your own and you will be actually drafting really good answers. The biggest mistake which the students make is they think that we will just read the kid's answer, we'll just read the model solution, and on the exam day, magically we will be able to frame answers as good as the exam answer. No, that's not possible. Things will only come to you with practice. So, if everything is clear till here, should we now move towards the last few concepts that we're left with as part of this chapter? You're all with me till here? Okay. So here we come to the quizzes. I have already solved this. I'll just reset it. Okay. So here is question number 1 in front of you for chapter 15 quiz. Read through the question properly and let me know your answers in the chat box. I want everyone to participate. Let's make this interactive, guys. You can be wrong, absolutely no problem, but I want everyone to try. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of answers in the chat box, and most of you are saying option C, and you're all right as well. Many organizations use non-financial performance indicators. Which of the following NFPIs is most suitable for monitoring quality? So we are talking about the quality. This means it has to be something which is not number related, but actually quality related. So throughput volume, this will be the money that the business is making. New customers per time period does not necessarily monitor your quality. Number of transactions, also the quality will be best measured with the customer complaints. So more complaints will mean poor quality and lesser complaints will mean better quality. So our answer has to be option C over here. Is everybody with me? Should I take you people to the next question? Okay. So here is question number 2 in front of you. The following ratios have been calculated for a company. You're given with the GP margin, operating profit margin, gearing ratio, and the asset turnover ratio. You're required to calculate the return on capital employed. So here you will not be getting your answer with the direct manner. You will be using the indirect formula of ROCE to calculate this one. Calculate and let me know your answers. Take 30 seconds. Okay, I'm starting to receive answers. What's the formula that we have learned? The alternative formula for ROCE? What formula will you use? Yes, asset turnover times the operating margin, right? So you're given with your operating margin as 28%. So this is quiz question number 2. Operating margin is given to you people as 28%, and then your asset turnover is 65%. Asset turnover is 65%. So ROCE will be a product of all of these. So this figure multiplied by this figure, which will give you 18%, which gives you option C as your final answer. All clear? Should we head forward now? Is this understood by everybody? Should I take you to the next one? Okay. So here is question number 3 in front of you. Which of the following is not necessarily quality of a key performance indicator? 3 of them are qualities, 1 is not. Okay, very good, guys. You're coming up with your answers, and it is right. It will be option B. Just today, we have covered the concepts related to KPIs. KPIs should be 3 things. They should be measurable, they should be relevant, and they should be specific. So part B is something which is not necessarily a quality of a KPI. Moving ahead to the second last question pertaining to this quiz. Think and let me know your answers. All right, so I'm receiving answers. Let's discuss this together as well. The following methods have been suggested to improve Litpan's financial position. First is selling off old inventory at a discount. So ultimately, your final requirement is which action will help you improve your quick ratio. So the formula for quick ratio is simply current assets minus inventory divided by the current liabilities. So for each and every item, to check whether it will improve this way or not, we can simply see which item will affect the current ratio, the quick ratio, in which manner. So I know that the formula is current assets minus inventory divided by current liabilities. So if I want the ratio to improve, two things can happen. Either my current liabilities should go down or my numerator should go up. Only in both of the cases the ratio is actually going to improve. First is if I sell off old inventory at a discount. So anyway, inventory was not a part of my quick asset. So nothing gets reduced from my numerator. And if I talk about selling off, when I sell off inventory, guys, what do I receive in return? Cash. That means my numerator is going to increase or decrease? Numerator will increase. Will there be any effect on the denominator? No. So numerator is increasing without any effect on denominator. What happens to my final answer? Increase or decrease? If numerator is increasing, final answer also increases. So one has to be one of the answers. Let's have a look at the second statement, obtaining a long-term loan from the bank. When you receive a long-term loan from the bank, will it be a current liability or will it be a non-current liability? It will be a non-current liability. And when you take a loan, your non-current liability will increase. And where will the bank give you the money? It will be credited in your bank account. So your current assets are going to increase with no change in your denominator. So what happens to your overall answer? Overall quick ratio also increases. So that means 1 and 2 are definitely your answers. Let's check the third statement also. Third statement tells you taking 10 days longer each month to pay Litpan's main supplier. So you're taking longer to make the payment. That means your payables balance will be a higher figure or a lesser figure. If you take more time to pay your suppliers, it will be a higher figure. So if trade payables are higher, that means out of numerator and denominator, what gets affected? Trade payables are part of current liabilities. So your denominator will be higher. If denominator is higher, will it improve your overall answer? Will your overall answer be higher? No. So what will be the final answer that we mark over here? Option A, that is 1 and 2. Right. Is everyone clear with all three of the statements? Any doubts that you people have? You're all with me? With logic, all statements should be clear. Right? Okay. Moving forward to the last question now. The following figures have been taken from Fraser's statement of profit or loss. What margin is Fraser achieving on their profit for the year after financing and income taxes? So you have to find the margin on the profit after finance and income tax. The requirement is just a little bit twisted. Let's see how many of you are able to come up with the right answers here. Okay, I can already see a few answers pouring in. So we are supposed to find out the margin of the profit after tax and interest. So what we basically, the question is indirectly asking you people to find out the net profit margin. So for the net profit margin, what do you people take? You take the profit for the year, that is the profit after subtracting interest, after subtracting taxes. So you take this figure 1200 and you divide it by the revenue figure of 8000. So divide this by 8000 and 15%. If you convert to percentage, 15% is what you will get, which is option D over here. Okay. If there are any queries in the 5 questions that we have just discussed, please let me know. If you're all good till here, then also let me know. Okay, great. All right. So with this, we are done with the quiz for this chapter. Rishika says, drafting answer with you is really easy, but when I draft it myself, I start ending up writing more, but not productive. How can I solve this problem? So see, Rishika, in your initial stages of practice, it's completely okay to come up with maybe short answers or maybe longer than needed answers. Eventually, you will get better at it with practice. And at the same time, with the PM course, we are going to be having tests wherein you people will write these solutions and send them over to me for the feedback. So I will go through your individual answer. I will let you know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and how exactly can you improve. So with a combination of practice as well as the improvements that you people make from my feedback, you will be able to draft good answers till the time of your exam. Okay, sounds good. All right. So we are done with chapter number 15 along with the quiz, and we are still left with 10 minutes. What do you people say? Should I give you an introduction of what we will be doing from tomorrow onwards? Or would you want to be left earlier, 10 minutes earlier? Okay. Are there questions specific for this chapter in kids? Okay, so thank you for that question, Sahana. I got reminded that the practice portion, so basically how we are going to work is we are covering the chapters all together in the class, all concepts we are doing together. We even solve the quizzes together once we are done with the chapters. But the practice portion, this is something which you people are going to do once we finish the chapters in class. So now it goes without saying, I will not say this from every chapter that we do now onwards. It is self understood that whenever we have wrapped up with a chapter in class, we've done the quiz in the class, it automatically by default becomes a part of your homework, that any questions that are available in the practice portion from chapter number 15. So you see, there are OT revision questions. There are 8 questions available from chapter number 15, which are the objective type revision questions. Further, let's see, are there any more? Yes, there are. You can see that constructed response, there are 3 questions. So these 3 questions you can practice: accountancy, teaching, web company, best night company. 3 questions which are there in the constructed response format. Constructed response means these are questions which similar to this activity that we just did, framing our own answers in lengths. So this is something that you will do. You can just use Control F and see how many types of questions you have pertaining from chapter 15. So with respect to chapter 15, yes, only 2 sections are there. One is this one, the OT revision questions. These are 8 in total. And then the 3 constructed response questions, these ones. So this is something which is by default a part of your homework. As in when we finish more chapters, I'll let you people know that what questions you can practice from the kit. But so far, since this is only the first chapter that we've done together, only stick to these questions for your own practice now. Okay? Is this understood by everybody? Can I know by a thumbs up? This is your homework? Yes? Okay, great. So keep on with the practice, guys, and you will be in a very good shape when you come towards the nearing of your exam. Just keep up with your practice as and when I'm telling you to do, and you will be really well prepared. Okay, so this is something that I wanted to talk to you people about. Now I'll give you a quick introduction of the next chapter that we are going to take up from tomorrow onward. So guys, from tomorrow onwards, what we are going to do is there are two choices. Now, what I was initially thinking, so we are now going to go back into the normal sequence of our syllabus. So chapter number one, guys, as I was telling you people in the orientation also, I don't know if you people remember or not, but chapter number one is completely concept based. That means there are absolutely zero numericals when it comes to chapter number one. And it is also a very big chapter. You can see this is the length of the notes that we have for this chapter. So it is going to take time. And this is completely concept based. That means no numbers. Sometimes it does happen that students are getting too much of, when they're learning too much of these concepts without lots of numbers coming in the middle, you do tend to get bored. So I was thinking that we, rather than getting started with chapter one, we get started with chapter two. Here we are going to have a mix of concepts as well as numerical. So the name of the chapter you people can see over here on your screen, Cost and Management Accounting. Here we are going to have a quick revision of what you people learned as a part of your MA paper, the absorption costing, traditional costing, activity based costing. So we'll have a quick recap of that and we build more onto the concepts of ABC. So lots of numericals along with the concepts that we are going to be learning over here. Or another strategy which I would recommend is we can take up both of these in parts. So we start off with chapter 2, we do a little bit of numerical, maybe for 1 hour, 1.5 hours, we can take this up. And for half an hour, we can start up with the chapter number 1. So what we can do is chapter 1, we can divide in small manageable parts. I think some of you were there with me in the FM success batch also. So there also we have one chapter which is really very lengthy. So rather than doing that entire lengthy theory boring chapter in one go, we divided that into small parts so that you people remember also what we will be studying as part of those chapters, and then it does not become boring as well. So what we will do is from tomorrow onwards, we will be getting started with chapter number 2, which is a mix of numbers as well as concepts, more of numbers I would rather say. And then maybe in some time that we have of our class, maybe half an hour or something, we can start with chapter number 1 also. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay, great. So just to give you people an overview of what we are going to learn as part of chapter number 2, as I was mentioning to you people, we will first get started. So the name of the chapter is we are going to have an introduction towards the management accounting and the cost accounting. So as part of this chapter, what all we are going to learn, we will first learn what is the scope of management accounting. So you people would have heard about financial accounting, you people would have heard about management accounting. So are they the same or are they any different? We will learn about that. We will draw a comparison between both of these accountings. And then we will also learn what are the 3 things which the management of any company is mainly responsible for. Management does planning, management does controlling, manage does decision making. So we will learn about these 3 key terms. Then we will go back to the concepts that we have already learned as part of MA paper. Even if you took exemptions in the MA paper, guys, please do not worry. I will teach you everything from the very scratch. So we will learn about marginal costing, we will learn about absorption costing, and further we will learn about activity based costing. If you've done the MA paper, you would have already learned the basics of the ABC, but here in the PM paper, we delve into the complete detailed concepts of the ABC. So this is what we have in store for us for tomorrow's session. Okay, so this is where I would conclude today's session if you do not have any queries. If you have any queries, please feel free to ask me. If you don't, then you can exit and I'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, keep revising as much as time that you get apart from what you otherwise do. You may be working, you may be studying. So whatever time extra that you people get, ensure that you utilize that time for revising what we have done so far and for practicing the questions that I have just allocated to you. Okay? The notes will be uploaded over the portal. We've just gotten done with chapter number 15, so I'll upload the notes on the portal soon. Anything else that I can help you people with? All good, everybody? All right, then I'll see you people tomorrow, same time, same place. I'll share you the link. Okay? Bye bye. Good night.